Welcome to the Bojack Podcast Horseman Obviously. This is episode number 7. My name is Dominic and I'm joined by Matthew.
Hello.
The aim of this podcast is for me to convince Matthew that Bojack Horseman is the greatest animated TV show of all time. And in this episode, we will be discussing Series 1, Episode 7, Say Anything. Hello, Matthew.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Good. Been very busy recently, but in the best way possible. So, yeah, I'm all good. How about you?
Good. Yes, I'm good. So, would you like to tell us what happens in this episode?
This episode is an episode about Princess Caroline's the main character in this episode. It's about her life. We see a lot more into her life as an agent and about her relationship with Bojack. At the start of the episode, Bojack's on another bender after finding out about Diane's engagement to Mr. Peanut Butter. And yeah, he goes off on a bender and she tries to bring him back. And then throughout the episode, she tries to get him work. We see all kinds of ongoings at their agency as well. Loads of characters are introduced, loads of new characters. Todd's storyline is that he becomes kind of an actor. He gets a job working on a commercial that Bojack basically walks out of. And yeah, we see a bunch more unlikable people in this episode.
It's directed by Martin Sendreda and it's written by Raphael Bob Waxberg and Joe Lawson. Since this is a Princess Caroline episode, do we recognise the voice of Princess Caroline?
I hadn't paid attention to it.
Well, I don't know if you know the actress actually, but it's Amy Sedaris. She's been in quite a lot of stuff, actually, by the looks of it. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix, I think it is. I think it's quite popular, though. A couple of old school ones, Made in Manhattan.
Okay, yeah.
Puss in Boots. She's in quite a few of the Shrek voiceovers as well. School of Rock, apparently she's in.
Okay.
Which I don't remember her being in.
Nope.
The Mandalorian.
Okay, I like The Mandalorian, but I don't know what character she is.
Boba Fett.
Okay.
She's in
That's less good.
Okay. She's in a bit of a costume when I saw some screenshots.
Okay.
So you probably wouldn't recognise her. But I think she's quite well renowned. This episode starts with Princess Caroline giving Bojack a motivational speech. And it starts very sharply with her looking down into the camera. Well, there's no camera, is there? But yeah. She's looking directly at us as an audience, and she's saying, you got to get your shit together. You took some licks, but you're going to bounce back because you're talented, you're smart, and damn it, you're good. You're a goddamn American treasure. You know that. You're Bojack goddamn Horseman. So get the hell off my lawn. I don't know, how do you think we've seen Princess Caroline so far? Do you think this one bit is a continuation, or do you think it's now different?
No, it was the same.
Okay. It's her pushing, like you said, it was like quite pimp-like in a previous episode.
Yeah,
she's really pushing this.
She's just
client.
She's just a caricature of the stereotypical Hollywood agent.
Okay.
And there's nothing new here. Even in the I think one of the last lines in this scene is she says something that I believe. I'm an agent. I believe everything I say,
yes.
Or something like that,
yes.
Which is obviously very tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Understanding that she has to be flexible with the truth.
Right. Okay. I do feel like there is a bit of a joke about this feeling like quite a powerful speech, quite a powerful motivational speech, but the reason she's giving it is to get some drunk off their lawn.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a flip of the joke.
There was at no point in this speech did I feel like it was sincere.
Okay. So, like you said, it turns out that Bojack's been on a bender since he found out that Diane got engaged to Mr. Peanut Butter. Princess Caroline then gives us a bit of an explanation of what Bojack's been doing on this bender. And it's a bit of an evolving joke where he says that he met John Stamos and he says he did all these things like get his ears pierced or was night swimming, but it turns out it's just an old man that he's been with. He's obviously that drunk that he thinks that he's John Stamos.
I did like this bit of writing where
yes,
Princess Caroline constantly corrects him and tells him, no, actually, this happened.
Yeah.
And you have the scene replayed over and over, but just with when Princess Caroline gives different information, the scene is altered slightly.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because initially you don't realize that this is quote unquote flashback.
Yes.
It's from Bojack's perspective.
Yes.
Because he plays the flashback,
Right,
and then Princess Caroline, no, actually it was like this. And then you see the scene again differently. And then she says, actually you were naked. And then you see the scene again differently. Yeah. And then she goes, no, actually it was in my office.
Yeah.
It wasn't even at our house in the first place. So like it gradually devolved into something worse and worse and worse.
And that's what I mean. I feel like when we watch it, we feel like the joke's finished, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
There's like 4 or 5 layers each time.
Yeah,
So it works. I like it. I think it works.
I thought it was pretty smart.
So Princess Caroline decides that she's going to help Bojack. She's going to do him a favour and help him get over Diane. So she calls in a favour from someone she knows, and she gets him a job advertising Guten Bourbon, a urban German bourbon.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a nice little tongue twister there.
Yeah.
Princess Caroline then also gets a notification on her phone to say that she needs to meet Lenny Turtletub, who we did see earlier in another episode.
Did we?
We did.
When he came on screen, I was like, have I seen this guy?
Yeah, we only very quickly.
He didn't have a speaking part, did he?
He's in the very first episode where Bojack has the flashback of when he's breaking up with Princess Caroline in a restaurant.
Okay.
And one of the first things he says is, who does that guy think he's fooling? Turtles don't have wigs.
Yeah.
There's obviously a point in this episode showing us how much Princess Caroline works. And I thought this is emphasised as well by the fact that this meeting with Lenny Turtletub is a breakfast meeting. It's an early morning meeting at 7:30.
Yes. But the impression that I got was that she's not very good at her job.
Wow, okay. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, nothing that she does goes right.
Okay.
So far, and I can't think of anything in all of episodes that we've watched where it goes well.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
And the fact that there's one bit where she's having a meeting at 7:30 in the morning, and then later on in the episode, someone says, oh, you left early, and she said, I left at 8:30, as if implying that that's early, when actually that's pretty late to be leaving work.
Yes.
So if she's doing 12, 13, 14-hour days maybe, and she's not getting anything done, that's even worse.
Okay.
She's working more and achieving less. So the evidence that I've seen so far, especially on this episode, is that she's not very good at her job.
Okay. We'll come back to this.
Okay.
But this is where Bojack says to her, like you mentioned, do you really believe all that stuff you said to me earlier in the speech? And she says, I'm an agent. I believe everything I say. And yeah, reinforcing that fact that, what phrase did you use again?
Tongue in cheek.
Tongue in cheek, but also flexible with the truth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's well highlighted actually in that first episode where she's on the phone to Bojack, where we think that he's split up with his girlfriend, and then she rings back and it's as her agent, and he says like, as my ex-girlfriend, am I fat? And she's like, yeah, you look like a pile of shit. There ain't another pile of shit. He said, what about as my agent? And she says, you're in the best shape of your life.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So they're just willing to say whatever they need to say to keep people happy. Yes, so that takes us into the opening credits. And after the opening credits, Princess Caroline is sat with Lenny Turtletub having this meeting. Did you recognise this person's voice?
No, because I was so distracted by the fact that I was trying to figure out if it was supposed to be Martin Scorsese.
Oh, okay. I think this person's supposed to be a producer, but it's J.K. Simmons.
Oh, sick. Okay, yeah, he's great. Yeah. He's got like Scorsese style, like glasses and style.
Yeah,
stuff. I do like this character. I enjoy it for his anthropomorphic jokes, and his catchphrase is name dropping people.
Yes.
I'll tell you what I told X.
Yeah.
And it's always something kind of nonsense as well, which is great. Yeah.
It is a bit of a name drop, but it's also a name drop of like how long he's been in the industry.
Yeah, there's
like,
one reference to Buster Keaton.
Yes.
Wow, this guy must be. And that does correlate with him being a turtle as well. That I didn't think about until now.
Yeah. He also says a bit of a joke to introduce himself, where he says he's in a hurry, so he'll make this snappy, and he like delivers the line slowly as well. It's like he's not in a hurry, but also snappy at the turtle snapping, which is nice. So Princess Caroline actually gets interrupted by a phone call from Bojack with him trying to say thank you. And Bojack wants to have this sort of like deep connecting conversation, but Princess Caroline sort of is trying to focus on the meeting in front of her. And eventually she goes, I can't talk now. And then Bojack, I think that a nice funny bit is Bojack goes, oh yeah, sorry, I can't talk either.
Yeah.
So like the idea that he can't be, again, that sort of vulnerability, he can't be showing that he's ready to be open and have a deep conversation if the other person isn't willing to have that conversation.
It's just a pride thing. That's all it is. It's like you can't fire me, I quit.
Yes. Okay.
It's like, you're not breaking up with me, I'm breaking up with you.
I did also think, that's what I suppose I was trying to say as well, is I think it's also like just a time thing as well. Like, if you're really busy, I've got to pretend I'm really busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's like really nice.
Yeah.
I think there's a nice joke there from Bojack. Princess Caroline hangs up the phone and Lenny says, we've got Zach Braff for the movie they're working on. And Princess Caroline says, you beautiful dickhead, which I can't work out what this phrase is supposed to be. I feel like it's really out of place. I feel like it's deliberate, but there must be a joke there, but I'm just not sure what it is, whether dickhead's a slang for turtles. That's the line that sticks out that actually ruins this conversation for me.
Okay.
Because I just feel like the phrase dickhead, or even beautiful dickhead, is so like, it's such a strong phrase, and she says it quite strong, and because I don't understand what it's supposed to be implying, it just feels a bit off.
Yeah.
But Princess Caroline says no other director has enough weight to handle a movie about the last days of Eva Braun. And she's referring to Zach Braff, who I only know from Scrubs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's directed a couple of movies, but I've never watched them. And I feel like there's a joke here about him not having enough weight to direct a serious movie.
What this episode did really make me think is it's quite an interesting concept to make a movie about Eva Braun.
Okay, yes.
Because like there's so much stuff made about Hitler.
Okay.
And one of the best films I've ever seen is a movie called Downfall, which is a German film about the last days of the Third Reich. Okay. And it's very powerful. It's strong. It's a pretty hard watch. But there's loads of stuff made about Hitler. I don't know. There might be a film about Eva Braun, but yeah, I just thought it struck me that I thought there would have been like a prominent film about her, given her role in Hitler's life and Hitler being such a
prominent person in history.
Yeah.
I read a little bit about Eva Braun.
Okay.
And it seems like, this is like, I read a little bit on her short Wikipedia page. So the bits that stuck out to me were she had multiple suicide attempts.
Yeah.
And they were the article was saying about how they were basically attempts to try and to demonstrate her love to her.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a very, like you were saying, it might actually be a really interesting movie because I feel like she's probably quite a disturbed person.
Absolutely.
From what I've read.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to spend your life with arguably the most evil person that's ever walked the planet, then if you're going to be besotted with Hitler, then you're going to have certainly something different going on.
Also, I would like to see that movie tied in with the conspiracy of Hitler still being alive and not committing suicide.
And living in Argentina.
Yeah. That's what I would love to see.
Oh, it could be like,
and those two escaping, can't
you? Titanic.
Yes. Okay.
Where the Rose is an old woman and she's telling the story. Yeah. So it could be Eva living out her life in Argentina as an old woman, and then she's telling the story of her life, and then the twist at the end is that Hitler walks out the door.
Yeah.
And he's,
So also as Princess Caroline and Lenny are having this conversation, we get a visual joke of the waitress coming over, and instead of pouring some milk out for them, she squeezes the milk from her tea. I don't know what you call it. Udders. Udders. She squeezes the milk from her udder, which really, every time I see it, I don't drink a lot of milk, but it really puts me off milk. The idea of someone coming to the table and just squeezing out, expressing milk in front of you.
Yeah, it made me feel sick.
So Princess Caroline thinks this movie is a done deal. But Lenny says he's been in this business a long time, and he has this joke of referencing an old actor and saying it's not done until all the deals are done. So again, like you said, like we were sort of discussing earlier, it's like a bit of a humble brag that he knows that he knew all these famous people. But also, yeah, there is a joke that the quotes that he uses from these people don't seem to be very special quotes.
No.
They're just like regular phrases that you would just say, but he drops the name in.
Yeah.
But Princess Caroline says she's the best agent in the business and she can get all the deals done. So even if you don't think that she's a very good agent, she thinks she's a very good agent.
Yep.
And she's determined.
Is that because potentially she's narcissistic?
Okay.
Like every person, like pretty much every character in the show.
I don't know. I'm going to try and think about your point of her not being a very good agent, because that's really thrown me, actually. But maybe that would be an example, because if she was narcissistic. But in her head, she's very determined to make this movie happen, and she's going to do everything she can. So Princess Caroline arrives back at the Vigor agency where she works, and all chaos has broken loose because they're merging with another agency. And there's a couple of little jokes that I like here, visual jokes, where one of the signs says, "Welcome to new employees," and then the other sign says, "Good luck to redundancies." I don't know. I like not the hypocrisy, but the juxtaposition of welcoming new people, but also getting rid of old people, and what sort of situation that leaves you in. Also, there's so much chaos that there's to demonstrate that one of the slugs is pouring salt on themselves.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
That's that.
This
is one thing that I will comment at this point that I realised when I was halfway through this episode, is that doing this podcast, when you're pointing out all this extra stuff in the background, there's a lot of time I get distracted from the main action because I'm looking at what's going on in the background.
Because you're trying to see them.
Yes.
Okay, that's not very...
But it's a mixture of the two. Like, I can still follow what's going on, but if it's a very busy scene, I'm like, oh, what's going on there? Oh, what's going on there?
Okay. Because I'm constantly... Yeah.
And I think because I'm analysing it more because I know that we're podcasting.
No, and I wouldn't want you to get too distracted looking for them. I suppose the main reason I bring them up is because, and again, the premise of this podcast, I've seen it so many times and you've not seen it.
It's like in one of the following scenes coming up shortly, there's one of the crew for the TV show wearing a I'm a Zelda t-shirt.
Yes.
And I probably wouldn't have even noticed that if we hadn't have broken down that episode so thoroughly.
So I suppose what I'm trying to do with the visuals, when I point out visual jokes, is more for me and anybody listening.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah. And if anything, again, I think it highlights, even if you can rewatch it and see a small joke in the corner of the screen that you didn't see before, it's almost like rewatching the show gives you more value each time you watch it.
Okay, yeah.
And that's something I appreciate. Although I think there is sometimes different aspects to different stories that add another level sometimes that make episodes even more interesting. I think just on the very basic level of, I didn't see that joke last time, it adds something so it's not boring to rewatch. Yeah. Okay, so also in this chaotic scene, there is someone weeing themselves as well. And there's someone being chased by a wolf.
Yeah, I saw that one.
You saw that one?
Yeah.
Right, okay. But basically, all these little visual jokes are to demonstrate how much chaos is happening around her at this time. Princess Caroline's assistant, Laura, says this merger was unexpected and was not handled well, and that there's new agents already moving in. I've written here that I think Princess Caroline seems relatively calm in this situation compared to other people. That I think she is a very good agent. I think she is the best agent in the business. Matthew's shaking his head at me while I'm saying that. But I think this is her ability to stay focused with chaos happening around her. She's like, right, all that stuff's happening, that's great. So now I need to get on with making this movie. I need to get on with my work.
I think it's a narcissism again. She doesn't care.
Okay, because she's the narcissist.
Yeah. She doesn't care about anyone else. She only cares about herself. She's only focused on her own work. So it's like she believes in herself so much. What's the chaos going on around her is irrelevant. It doesn't affect her because she's too good for that.
Okay, that's interesting. One of the new agents that moves in is Vanessa Gecko.
This is maybe the best joke in the series so far.
You're gonna like.
Yeah, because she's been mentioned a couple of times in previous episodes.
And you've said in another podcast, I really want to see what she looks like.
Yeah, and
go on.
She steps into frame. She steps onto the scene, and she is not a gecko.
No.
And she's just a human. That completely subverted my expectations.
Princess Caroline leads us into the joke by saying that slippery, slimy, cold-blooded, bug-eyed Vanessa Gecko turns up, revealing that she is a human, not an animal. So it's the opposite of what we were expecting.
Yeah. And like I keep saying again and again about Bojack in general, is that most of the jokes are just so on the nose, and they are what you're expecting. This is not what I was expecting at all, which is probably why it was unexpected, because all the other jokes are so like in your face that this was like really subverting expectations. And like I said, probably the best joke of the whole series so far, especially given the long game, like leading up to it, like dropping hints about her character through the last few episodes.
Okay. So Vanessa Gecko says she's really excited when she heard the news. She was in the middle of her second Soul Cycle class, and she rushed home, made love to her husband of 15 years, made a hot breakfast for 3 wonderful girls, read to them, dropped them off at their elite private school, and then got to work herself.
Yep.
So,
instantly another character I absolutely despise.
But we despise her because she seems to be rubbing it in Princess Caroline's face.
Mm-hmm.
This rivalry that we've got, we're definitely, whether we like Princess Caroline or not, we're supposed to be on her side. We're supposed to see her, Vanessa Gecko, as having a perfect life with everything that's easy and everything's worked out well. Gecko then asks how old Princess Caroline's children are, and Princess Caroline says she doesn't have any, and Gecko says, oh, it will still happen. Like, it could still happen. Like, there's a hesitation in her voice, which is very condescending.
The interesting point about that is that it's not clear whether Princess Caroline wants children or not. She just says she doesn't have children.
No.
And she doesn't explicitly say, I want children. So we don't know.
Do you think it changes at another point in the episode?
Yes.
Yeah.
The end of the episode.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't change that, because we still don't know. She could still want children.
Yes. Or not want children.
Yeah, or not want children. But it's it puts this conversation has a different spin on it at the end of the episode.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. This is also where the boss of Vigor arrives. And at the moment, we don't actually know his name, I don't think. But he's a big frog. I don't know if you picked up on the sound that he's introduced with each time.
Yeah.
Have you got any thoughts on it? It's like a trombone. Is it like?
Yeah, it's like a comedy trope thing. I don't know why.
Okay.
I kind of like it.
But I noticed it every time.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was a demeaning sound for him.
It did.
It wasn't like an elevator.
Oh, no. It's definitely
coming down.
A piss take sound.
Yeah. That's what I was going for. But yeah, so the boss says this merger is happening, and Princess Caroline says she's pumped about the merger, and Gecko really quickly says almost at the same time, I'm beyond pumped. So again, there's this one-upmanship between Gecko that they're trying to prove that each of them's the best, and there's a competition between them. So Princess Caroline goes into her office and she gets a phone call from Todd. And Todd explains that Bojack's disappeared from set, from this job that Princess Caroline has set up for him. But while he's explaining this, he's sipping on some of the bourbon, and he inadvertently says exactly what the director wants to hear in the commercial. And the director turns around to him and says, we need to use you for this set. Now that Bojack's gone, we can use you, Todd. You're perfect. And Todd says, don't worry, I won't let this all go to my head. But then immediately shouts out, who told that arsehole he could sit in my chair? So it's like, right, so he is turning into a
stereotypical
prima donna actor sort of thing.
I think in the industry they're described as hard to work with.
Hard to work. Okay, yes. Yeah. And he is very hard to work with in this scene now going up, isn't he? As she hangs up, Bojack appears in her office, and Bojack explains he doesn't know why he was so upset about Diane getting engaged, because Princess Caroline is the one that's always been there for him. And Bojack says, Princess Caroline, what are we doing here? Clearly we're in love with each other, which is, I think, a bit of a cheesy rom-com style. It's like at the end of the romantic comedy when the person you're supposed to be with has always been under your nose.
Or he's trying to convince himself. Because Diane's now out of the picture, so like he's going, okay, so I was wrong about that, so now I go back to what I know.
Yes, it could be just the hard sting of rejection, and then second best, right, I need to grab onto someone else. Sloppy seconds, isn't it?
Sloppy seconds.
Is that too... Is that not podcastable?
That is pretty hard.
But, so, okay, I don't know what the better word is, but yeah, he's going on to the next best option.
Yeah. A rebound, maybe.
Rebound.
Yeah.
But Princess Caroline says, you're not in love with me, you're in love with Diane. You're not even really in love with her. You just think you are because you pay her to listen to you talk about yourself. Are we quite happy with that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I suppose I'm asking, are we happy with that? Because I think it's contrary to what we were talking about before, where they are in a romantic relationship. But Princess Caroline's pointing out here that there's nothing romantic about the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you literally, because you're a narcissist, someone's listening to you talk about yourself, you love that. So you love yourself rather than Diane.
Yeah. And he thinks she's hot as well.
Okay, yeah.
So there's a physical attraction.
Okay. But yes, I think she's got quite a good understanding of the situation Bojack's in.
On the other hand, maybe this is just Princess Caroline's opinion, and she doesn't actually know that Bojack could have genuine feelings for her.
Okay.
For Diane.
I like that, actually, because I think we're supposed to think that is the answer, but again, it's one person's perception of what's going on rather than the whole thing. Bojack says Diane getting engaged was the best thing that ever happened to him. It made him realise that Princess Caroline is who he should be with. This also sets up a bit of a joke where every time something bad happens to Bojack, he falls back to Princess Caroline as like his safety net.
Yeah.
And
as far as the flashback jokes go, this was one of the least offensive. This was all right.
Okay. However, Princess Caroline puts her foot down and she says she won't be his agent and his girlfriend. She's done that before. She knows it's a bad situation. But they get interrupted by Lenny Turtletub calling Princess Caroline again to say that Zach Braff has pulled out of the Eva Braun project. So this project that Princess Caroline was so sure was a done deal is starting to fall apart already. While they're discussing this on the phone, though, Bojack unplugs the phone. So really sort of narcissistically, I suppose.
Absolutely. I hated this. I was like, what a dickhead.
Yeah.
What a dickhead.
He's gone into her place of work,
and
he's now stopping her from working.
Yes, yeah.
Actually, quite an important call.
Yeah, that was one of the moments when I'm like, I hate this character. I hate Bojack.
Bojack says to Princess Caroline, you work too hard, and he makes these robot gestures like she's just a machine that all she does is work. I think this is pretty rich coming from someone who hasn't worked for 18 years as well.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out Bojack's brought Princess Caroline a life-size cardboard cutout of himself on which he's recorded Jerry Maguire quotes.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, again, quite narcissistic to get a cardboard cutout of yourself to give to someone to remind you of them. And these quotes are going to keep going off all the way through this episode. You'll be glad to know I'm not going to read them all out, mention them all. But every time someone goes into the office, Bojack's cardboard cutout quotes something from Jerry Maguire.
Throughout this episode, I was just waiting for the show me the money.
Does he say it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's the last one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So you've seen Jerry Maguire?
Yeah. Haven't you?
No.
Oh, it's great.
I had to read about it.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah.
They're good.
It's really good. Yeah, iconic.
So there's a very deliberate reason why Jerry Maguire is used. And I don't think it's just because it's a film about an agent.
Okay.
Even though I've not seen the film.
Okay.
Jerry Maguire, from what I read, is about a sports agent who wanted to create a more caring relationship between the stars and himself.
Okay.
So whereas we've both discussed this trope of agents being very heartless and uncaring and greedy and actually not thinking about their clients, they just want the money, basically.
Yeah. They want their cut.
So Jerry Maguire was someone that was opposite to that.
Okay.
And I think although Princess Caroline seems like, up to this point, very heartless, but I think she's actually, with Bojack, developing a relationship similar to Jerry Maguire with his clients. She's there getting him off the law, and she's there getting him jobs and pulling in favours for him when she needs to. All the way up to now, Bojack's not done anything to help himself or indicate that he wants help, really. But Princess Caroline's there looking after him because she values the relationship and she wants to support her clients as well as just milk them for money. So I think they use Jerry Maguire because Princess Caroline is Jerry Maguire.
Okay.
But I think you're going to disagree with that.
No, I think it's a good point. I think the only difference is that Jerry Maguire is actually good at his job and Princess Caroline isn't. You've even said it again. Her clients take up 80% of her time and get 0% of her income.
But I think it's because
if she was that good, then she'd be making money off all of her clients. And if the clients weren't making her money, she'd kick them to the curb.
She deliberately doesn't kick them to the curb just because they're not making money for her. She's there to look after them.
Mm-hmm. And that's not an agent's job.
It's not typically, but in Jerry Maguire, he does very well because he does that.
Yeah, and he makes money off it.
Okay. I think I am going to disagree. I'm going to disagree at this point with her not being a good agent.
Okay.
I think one of the points of this episode is to show her dealing with the chaos around her. And I don't think she's failing because she's bad at her job. I think she's not succeeding because of the obstacles that are in her way that she has to overcome. Because that is what life is as well. Life isn't, I'm going to work hard and do well. Life is, you will work hard and something might come in the way to stop that.
Okay.
And then you might do well again.
That might be true. And yeah, I agree with what you're saying. But there's a popular thought process in the online productivity space, where there's a difference between busy and being productive.
Right, okay.
So a lot of people that think they're being productive and getting a lot done are actually just filling their time with busy work, putting out fires, fixing problems, doing things that aren't actually progressing in any way, shape or form. And everything that I've seen from Princess in this series so far, every time she's been in, she's doing busy work. She's not actually achieving anything. Every project that I've seen her involved with hasn't actually come to fruition. She's either lost a client or she's bailed on it.
But has she adapted to a new situation?
I don't know.
Like, has she come across a barrier or a problem and then resolved it in it? Because this is what this in as well.
Let's look at the David Boreanaz house example.
Okay.
She finds out about Todd's racket.
Yeah.
She gets herself involved with it, and then she scarpers before the shit really hits the fan.
Yeah, she's not demonstrating the Jerry Maguire agent to him there.
Forget the Jerry Maguire agent. We're just talking about her being good at her job.
Well, no, because they were making loads of money in that. Before they got arrested, before it got closed down,
Todd was making loads of money,
but she
with a con.
it up.
With a con. This has nothing to do with being an agent. This is her just getting involved with Todd's con.
Okay.
And then it didn't work out in the end. It all fell apart. So this money-making endeavor that she'd shoehorned herself into, basically illegal scam, and then she bailed because it all fell apart. That's just one example of something that she's been involved with that hasn't worked out.
But in this episode, I feel that she starts work on one project, the Everborn project, and some obstacles happen, some stuff gets in her way, but she has the insight, knowledge and know-how to put a completely new project together from the pieces of what's fallen apart.
Okay.
Towards the end of this episode, she suggests someone make a movie about the stealing of the D.
Mm-hmm.
And that project sounds like it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that she could. So I would say no. I would. Yeah, I would stand by this, because she could have just been like, "I failed at that project. It's not happened, and I'm a bad agent. I haven't made it work." But she's pulled herself together. She gives herself the motivational quote, motivational speech, and she pulls herself up, and then she gets back to work and keeps going.
Okay.
But you would say she's not got a. Would you say she's not got a good bearing to follow? Is that what you're saying? She's sort of just like all over the place with whatever happens and reacting to whatever happens.
I'm saying that I haven't seen her achieve anything of note so far in this series.
Okay.
I'm also saying that the goal of agents is to represent their clients and to fix problems.
Okay.
Yeah. She doesn't fix problems. Problems come and she can't fix them and she bails.
Yeah, see, I think I do. There's parts of what you're saying I definitely agree with. And I think she even talks about fighting fires.
And she gets outplayed by Vanessa at almost every occasion.
Not at the end, though. The end gets
Not at the end.
fired.
Yeah. Not
And she keeps her job and she gets her.
Yeah.
She gets her.
Yeah.
So I think she succeeds there.
She does have a moment there, yeah, for sure.
Okay. We get a title screen here, and Princess Caroline has to go, and she goes to lunch with someone to try and get some work.
Okay.
Because she comes back and she comes out the elevator and she's covered in food. She says, it's word to the wise, don't pitch a Nazi romance to Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a reference to a few of the films he's done, like Schindler's List.
Well, he's Jewish.
And he's Jewish, is it?
Yeah.
I didn't know he was Jewish.
Yeah.
But that seems like you were saying, she's not very successful. And maybe she should have seen that already. So it wasn't a very successful lunch. But before I've had this conversation with you, a lot of people wouldn't have gone to that meeting and tried to do that. But she's willing to try anything. She's working hard. There's nothing that she won't do.
Okay.
Like, whereas other people would just have dumped it and finished it off and left it, she's pitched it to the worst possible person.
Yes. Yeah.
Because she's like, even if there's a 1% chance, I will do that. That shows how hardworking she is, that she's just willing to do it. But now I'm thinking, based on your logic, that actually there's a smarter move to make. Not necessarily try every option. I make the smartest move, and maybe that's not the smartest move to make.
Yeah. You don't know if she's gone to him because he's arguably the most famous director of all time, and he just happens to be Jewish.
Yes, okay. Or if she's just a really bad agent and didn't
Exactly.
know she was Jewish.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So that actually emphasises your point.
Yeah.
Laura then surprises her with the fact that she's now sharing an office with Vanessa Gecko. And Bojack comes in and he announces that Vanessa Gecko is now his agent. So Princess Caroline can be his girlfriend. And he says, this is so great. Now I can date you and have a better agent. That's almost more offensive to me than unplugging the phone.
Yeah.
Because that very morning, she literally got him a job.
Yeah.
Todd is in the middle of filming this bourbon commercial, and he's let the commercial go to his head, and he's saying, get all of these robots out of my face, which is actually the cameras that are in his face. So he's going into a meltdown, basically.
He is getting more and more drunk, though, because earlier on, Bojack had explained that he'd replaced the prop whiskey with the real stuff.
Yes. So in Princess Caroline's office, she gets Vanessa Gecko a massive stack of papers full of people that won't work with Bojack.
Yeah.
And she says, fine, you can have him, you can work with him. And Gecko replies with, that's great. It gets kind of boring when all of your clients are in such demand. So it'd be interesting for her to have a difficult client. So again, it's really rubbing it in her face that she has life easy, and everything just happens naturally for her without too much effort. So at this moment, the paparazzi birds turn up who were taking the pictures of Bojack and Sarah Lynn earlier. And they say they've got a very lucrative business opportunity for Bojack, which at first Princess Caroline's like, what, as soon as I've lost him, the job offer comes in for him. But they say that the lucrative job opportunity is that they're blackmailing Bojack and that they want £150 each for these pictures, which I think there's supposed to be a bit of a joke of how low the amount is.
They said it really slowly. Yeah. We want $150.
Yes.
And the other guy's like, each.
Yes. So I don't know whether that's showing how little the public cares about Bojack now as well, that that's all they think they can get.
I just saw it as just showing these guys being really stupid.
Yeah, like I said, I think they're supposed to be bad at blackmailing people as well. So Gecko seems like she's going to pay them at first, but then she goes into this thing about, in California law, you need to have a permit and all this sort of thing. And it scares these birds off, which gives us another joke where one of the birds flies into the window. And then
I did enjoy that.
Yeah.
He just runs straight at the window and bounces off it, and then his mate drags him out of the office. I did enjoy that.
Yeah, it was nice.
That was also a moment for Vanessa Gecko to just show what a competent agent she is, because she rattles off a bunch of laws. She talked about like the permit, not having, you do have a permit, don't you? And then she talks about how extortion is illegal in California. And she nails him to the wall with legal talk.
So do you think Princess Caroline wouldn't have handled that very well?
No.
In Bojack Hates the Troops, it turns into a massive ordeal, and she has to set up this TV episode, basically for him to apologise. Whereas maybe Gecko would have just nipped it in the bud.
Yeah.
Actually, I think she's thinking about how lucky Gecko is that they've only asked for a small amount and they didn't have permits. And maybe she's thinking that if Bojack was her client still, that it wouldn't have been that easy. There would have been more problems. So again, something that seems a situation that she thinks would have been difficult for her has been a very simple situation for Gecko, but also seems to wrap up the sex pictures with Sarah Lynn.
Yeah. So
that's not going anywhere.
No.
Although it seemed like a very big deal in episode 3, I think it was, at the end.
The more and more this goes on, the less you realise what a big deal it is. Because even, I think they try and blackmail Bojack straight away in a previous episode.
They keep trying, don't they?
At all, yeah.
So now we feel like nothing's going to happen about that now. So the boss comes in again, and now we find out his name is Mr. Witherspoon. And he comes in because Princess Caroline and Gecko have had to share Princess Caroline's assistant, Laura, the very competent assistant. And Mr. Witherspoon turns up. He apologises for all the problems that are going on at the moment, but he says, one of you could have one of our rising star interns, Charlie Witherspoon. He comes in and he seems to just get everything stuck to his hands. He's just a mess in shambles, isn't he?
Yeah, well, he's a frog with those sticky hands.
Yes, yeah.
So when he first came in and they have this sticky hand joke, I was like, oh, this could be fun.
Okay.
And then within 2 minutes of meeting him, I hate him.
Okay.
It's so over the top. Oh yeah, he's incompetent. All right, we get it. He doesn't even know how to answer a phone.
He doesn't. I think at this point in the episode, we realise as well that he's the boss's son.
Yes.
Charlie Witherspoon is voiced by the creator, Raphael Bob-Waxberg.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Okay. Is that the first time that we've had a voice from Raphael? Yeah.
I think it's the only voice he does as well.
Okay, that's interesting.
So Gecko recommends to the boss that Charlie is Princess Caroline's assistant and she is Laura, the good assistant. And so now Princess Caroline has had another obstacle thrown in front of her because now she's lost her good assistant.
Mm-hmm.
She gets a call from the director of the commercial as well. And this is where he says Todd is drunk because Bojack mixed real alcohol with the prop alcohol, which leads us to Princess Caroline turning up on the set of the commercial to give Todd the same motivational talk as she did to Bojack at the start.
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of gives the impression that it's a pre-planned motivational speech that she gives to everybody, basically. But this time, when she's giving the motivational talk to Todd, she gets interrupted by a notification on her phone telling her there's a meeting with the Eva Braun team. So she doesn't actually finish the motivational talk with Todd. But I think there's an interesting bit here where she says, your name is Todd, goddamn. What is your second name? And Todd says, Chavez. Princess Caroline says, I just didn't think of you as a Chavez.
Yeah.
That's all.
No one did.
No one did.
No one did.
Okay.
When he said this, my thought went back to the first or second episode when he goes back to the cartel connection.
Princess Caroline then returns back to the bigger offices where the meeting is already in place and it's being run by Vanessa Gecko.
Yeah.
But she's brought in Quentin Trancherino because Zach Braff pulled out.
Yeah.
So she's brought this new director in. And apparently she says Quentin has always wanted to make a rom-com. And Gecko returns back to the meeting and she now uses this catchphrase, am I going to do it? Bye. Mm-hmm. She does like a little song as she's saying bye, which it does feel really obnoxious.
It's horrible.
Yeah, there's something about it.
Yeah. Princess
Caroline then returns to her office where Bojack is waiting for her again. And he tries to do this little spin reveal to show himself off, but he goes a little bit too far. Princess is really annoyed with Bojack at this point, and she said, you're ruining stuff. But all Bojack's got to say is have dinner with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's actually, he's not listening to what she's saying, but he doesn't even ask it as a question. He just says, have dinner with me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this sort of arrogance that he has that he can just ask her to go with him.
Mm-hmm. Tell her
to go with him. Princess Caroline says, I have to work. But Bojack says, no, you don't have to work. You choose to work. This is, I don't know whether you picked it up, but I think the animation here is very good. The way she's holding her arm.
Body language.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost like I can read her body language through the animation. And it feels, with her arm holding her other elbow like that, it feels like quite a defensive posture where she's quite guarded, but also the smile and the look in her eyes feels quite hopeful.
Okay.
I don't know if that's me reading into animation.
There's absolutely nothing special about the Bojack Horseman animation for me.
Okay.
Nothing. There's nothing. Okay. I've not seen anything that hasn't been done better in other shows.
No. Okay. I would stay away from better.
In fact, I would even suggest that the animation is bad, and it's one of the things that put me off initially about it.
Okay. I think this bit here, as I've gone back through the episodes, this stands out to me a lot.
Okay.
I think maybe I would agree to you. I don't think animation's anything. I don't think it's the thing that sells this show.
Not at all.
But I think there's a few points where I appreciate it. I think that
perhaps you appreciate it because the animation's so bad.
Yeah. No, and maybe I do. Yeah.
And when they have these moments of genuine expressing emotion through animation, that's where you appreciate it.
Yeah. And maybe it is very simple. And it's just not done a lot. Like I think there's only one other bit that I think that I've seen done really, really well with Bojack, and that stands out to me. I don't write about the animation a lot when I'm writing for this pod.
No.
So the fact that it stands out, maybe it's okay animation, but it still stands out to me that I think it's done well, and I think it displays the character's inner feelings without her actually expressing anything.
Maybe it stands out as well because it's the only point in the episode when she seems vulnerable.
Yes, no, yeah, definitely. And that's sort of what I mean, that like this is her, like, they've not chosen words and language and a scene to make her vulnerable. They've literally just resorted to Bojack trying to get her to go for a meal and try and talk her around.
Yeah.
And she just stood there like, okay.
Yeah.
But even if it's not good animation, at this point in the show, the character is feeling like there might be another option to work.
Okay.
This is also where Bojack says, why don't you choose to be happy? This is where Princess Caroline looks very warming to the situation that Bojack's presenting. We then cut to Princess and Bojack at Bojack's restaurant. To be fair to him, he's closed off the whole restaurant for this meal, which I only just noticed going back to this.
I didn't notice until the end.
Right.
Because when they're sat outside afterwards, there's a sign up on by the door that says closed for private event.
In this restaurant, while they're having this meal, he seems actually quite affectionate to her. He's suggesting that they go out and get gelato and drive to the ocean and put their feet in the water. So he's suggesting that there's a romance, or there could be a romance between them. But Princess Caroline is falling for it. Mm-hmm. She's believing that that might be something she wants, and it might be a viable option for her. Because she then goes to the bathroom and she gets a call from Vanessa Gecko, who says she wants to talk face to face, but she guesses that Princess had to leave early for some reason. And Princess Caroline says she left at 8:30. So, like you said earlier, she's actually left very late. But for some reason, Gecko's implying that she's not worked hard enough. She's not worked late enough. Vanessa tells her that Kate Blanchett has switched to Gecko because she's also a high-powered working mother. And she says, being a mum helped my career. I really can have it all. And I think that's playing on the comment that you either choose to have a career or you choose to be a mother. But again, the mother conversation is brought up again with Princess Caroline. So I still don't know whether at this stage we think that Princess wants children or not. Princess Caroline says, this isn't fair. I know everything about Kate. I know her favourite book, which is Suffragette City. And she says, like, her favourite colour and a few other things. Gecko also thinks that Kate Blanchett is British when actually she's Australian. So again, I feel like it really reinforces the idea that we have two types of agent. We have an agent that literally doesn't care and doesn't know anything about their clients. And we have the opposite. We have an agent that cares deeply, and what I might say is actually she cares too much. So maybe Jerry Maguire hits a nice spot in the middle, whereas Princess Caroline's going way too far and caring way too much about clients. Or it seems like that.
But we don't see what she's like with her other clients, though.
No, exactly, yeah.
We only see what she's like with Bojack, who she clearly has complicated feelings for.
Princess Caroline's like, right, okay, I'm going to sort this out. I'll call Charlie, but he's being useless. And Princess Caroline looks at herself in the mirror and says, do you know what? If Vanessa Gecko wants Kate that bad, she can have her. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be happy. Tonight, I choose to be happy. Which does imply that maybe she thinks she wasn't happy working so hard. Outside the restaurant, Bojack gets a call from Herb Kazaz. Before I sort of say what this phone call's about, I'm just going to remind us a bit of the voicemail that Bojack left for Herb that's caused him to call Bojack back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think 2 episodes ago, Bojack leaves a voicemail for Herb and he says, we have some unfinished business and life's too short to hold grudges and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying about life being too short. Of course, you know, you're the one with terminal. Maybe we could talk, Bojack.
Yeah.
So it's that phone call that Herb's replying to now. He answers the phone to Herb and Herb just says, ruined any lives lately? I got your message, arsehole. You got something to say to me. Come out to Malibu and say it to my face. I'll be alive tomorrow, but after that, who knows? So it's a very confrontational phone call. It's a juxtaposition from how romantic he was in the restaurant and how happy and how free and easy he was acting in the restaurant. Princess Caroline rejoins Bojack outside and she's all enthusiastic and happy. But now Bojack's obviously being very cold and dismissive because of this phone call he's just had. It's also where Bojack says the same line from earlier, but in a very different tone. Princess Caroline, what are we doing here? He says, this was a mistake. I've been acting crazy. That phone call pulled me back to reality. You were right. I don't love you. You don't love me. We're just two lonely people trying to hate ourselves a little less. Maybe that's all we're ever going to be. Maybe that's all we ever were. So it's a very depressing statement that Bojack makes. But I think there is an honesty in it because he is realising that he doesn't actually... It was a rebound, if we use that phrase from earlier. It was just him wanting to grab any small bit of happiness, validation that he could. And now he's realised that he's back where he was, basically. Princess Caroline says, this night took a turn. I knew this was going to happen and I let myself get excited anyway. And I think this was the reason for the guardedness a bit earlier on in the office. She did know that he was going to let her down, but it was something in the dream that she had of what this life could be like that she does want. And she wants it so much, she's willing to chase it, even if it's a very small chance it's going to happen. So there might be a small chance she has a healthy relationship with Bojack, but she's probably not. We can probably have a 1% chance she's going to have a good relationship with him. But she wants it that much that she was willing to try.
Or she's in exactly the same position that Bojack is.
Okay.
That Bojack has had this serious setback and he feels like he's on the back foot. And so he's looking for validation.
Yes. Yeah.
She's in exactly the same position. You know, she's been superseded by her rival. Her career is not doing too well. She's constantly reminded about her age and the not having a family and whatever. So maybe she's the same as Bojack. Maybe she's just looking for validation as well, and she sees that in Bojack.
And exactly like Bojack said, we're just two people trying to hate ourselves a little bit less.
Yeah.
But then Bojack does have another comment that is a head shake moment for me, where he says, "So we agree this is on you then," because she's admitting that she knew this was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And it just feels like, again, he will do anything to distance himself from the bad things that he's done.
Zero accountability.
That's a nice way of putting it.
On a slightly more upbeat note in this scene, I noticed something that I'd never noticed before. The statue, the fountain outside the front of the restaurant, is an elephant pissing in the mouth of a crocodile.
Yes.
And it's brilliant.
Okay.
It's so absurd.
Yeah.
And I've never I don't know if it's because the angle is slightly different or whatever, but you can see it really prominently in a couple of the scenes, like over the shoulder. And I'm like, how have I never noticed that before? It's so disgusting.
Once you see it, you never want to see it.
No.
Every time you're outside the restaurant, I see that.
Yeah.
So I'm happy you picked that.
Yeah.
It's quite nice.
Yeah, it did make me chuckle, that one.
So this is where we get a bit of a shift change in the episode, and it's the next day, and Princess Caroline is getting ready for work, but she's giving herself the motivational speech that she's been giving Todd and Bojack.
Yeah.
And she says, all of these speeches have started with the same phrase: "You've got to get your shit together." And she goes on to say, "So yesterday you let yourself fall in love a little bit, and you got your heart broken. Serves you right for having feelings. Starting now, you are a hard, heartless career girl. Go to work, be awesome at it. Don't waste your time on foolish flights of fancy. From now, you are a robot. Beep, boop, bop." You see, this is actually where I really like Princess Caroline.
Okay.
And this is where I think, again, it's the obstacles that she faces. To quote Rocky, it's not how hard you get hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep getting up. And that's what I really like about that's my favourite quality of Princess Caroline. I think this is the purpose of this episode. Whether she's a bad agent or not, I think is probably debatable. But I think the point of it is at every step she faces, she gets knocked down. And every step she continues to fight for.
Oh, she's certainly resilient.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
very resilient. Doesn't mean she's a nice person, though.
No. Yeah, I think Princess Caroline also displays a bit of the underdog trait, which is what I quite like in this episode, where we respect people more, or I respect them more when things aren't going their way, but they continue onwards anyway.
I think I do like Princess more after watching this episode than I did before.
I was going to say that for the end of the episode.
But I don't know if that's just a byproduct of me getting to know the character better.
Also, while she's going through this speech, we see her on a treadmill. On the other side of the treadmill of her, there's a sloth just hanging over, not doing very much. And then on the other side of her, there's a cheetah running really, really quickly.
I didn't miss that.
Yeah. There's a nice little slow, medium, fast joke about the animals.
Yeah.
Princess Caroline even calls Bojack this morning. She starts this phone call with, "I'm calling to tell you that I'm fine." And Bojack rightly points out, no one ever tells you they're fine when they're fine.
Yeah. I have the same thing with sure.
Okay.
You know, if someone tells you something and they go, "Yeah, I'm sure it is,"
Okay.
that means they're not sure.
Okay. But at this point, Bojack says to Princess Caroline, "You had the right idea about me getting another job. So I would like you to get me another job." But then Princess Caroline replies with, "I'm not your agent anymore. Gecko's your agent." And Bojack's just really flippant, like, "Oh, just tell whoever then." Bojack nearly runs over an armadillo now that's trying to cross the road. He stops sharply and the armadillo crawls into a little ball, which again is another little visual joke.
Yeah.
He then goes on to tell Princess Caroline that he's going to see Herb and he could do with some good news at the end of the day. And this leaves Princess Caroline a bit stunned that he's going to see Herb. So again, it's really all through the last sort of 3 or 4 episodes, I think, we've been building the tension between this relationship between Bojack and Herb. Princess Caroline enters the office and she says to Charlie, we're going to be kicking ass today, Charlie. But unfortunately, he's got his tie stuck in the photocopier. He makes a comment about if you flick through it really quickly, it looks like the tie is running. Just every comment and everything he does emphasizes his incompetence even more. Because even the idea that the tie's not even running, he's trying to reference flicking through it.
Yeah.
And the tie doesn't run.
No. This is so just obvious, this character. He's so just, again, on the
yes, okay. He is.
Over the top. No one is that incompetent.
So Princess Caroline goes into the office after talking to Charlie and says to Vanessa Gecko, Bojack wants a job. But Vanessa replies with the fact that Gwyneth came into her office, and to show Gwyneth how much of a priority she was, she shredded Bojack's contract in front of her. Hearing this, the boss, Mr. Witherspoon, comes into the office and he says, "Good riddance to Mr. Horseman," or whatever his name is. "He didn't earn the company any money, and the best agent in this building couldn't get him a job." To which Princess Caroline replies, "I got him a job yesterday, and I could get him a movie by the end of the day." Like trying to say that she is the best agent. And really, she's demonstrating that she is, because she did get him a job.
Mm-hmm. Does this mean we've been looking at Princess wrong the whole time, in that she actually is good at her job, but no one values her or appreciates her enough to actually make it work?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that goes to her underdog status sort of thing.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like is another point of all the obstacles she faces. She doesn't shy away from them.
Okay.
She's a grafter. She works hard. And although in previous episodes we've seen it in a bit of a negative light, that sort of grafting mentality, I think we're seeing a slightly different view of it in this episode. And we're seeing that she doesn't just work hard to work hard. She works hard because she has obstacles to overcome.
Okay.
But I do think, yes, she's undervalued and not appreciated.
Yeah.
So the boss says, right, if you can get him a job by the end of the day, get him a job. Like, I'm not bothered. But if we don't get him a job by the end of the day, we're not representing him anymore. As he leaves the office, he also congratulates his son, Charlie, on his running tie show getting picked up by NBC.
Yeah.
Which I think this is the point. The point of the Charlie character is another person in Princess Caroline's life who seems to have it easy. He's succeeding without even trying, which is the worst kind because she's trying so hard.
Is it a wider discussion about nepotism in corporate America?
Yes, yeah. And I don't know whether it's more prevalent in Hollywood and the entertainment industry or less, but I do think it's definitely who you know rather than what you know.
Yeah.
So this leads Princess Caroline on a journey of trying to find Bojack a job, and she keeps calling people, and there's a bit of comedy in the way it's done. It's how phone calls used to be in movies, where we can't hear what the other person's saying, so the person on screen has to repeat everything they say.
Yeah.
But then the cardboard cutout of Bojack says a line from Jerry Maguire, "Help me help you." This gives Princess Caroline an idea, and she goes to a meeting with Cameron Crowe, who is actually a raven.
And Cameron Crowe is actually the name of the director of Jerry Maguire.
Yes,
which blew my mind. Because I was like, in this scene, they're referring to him being the director of Jerry Maguire. And I'm like, yeah, but this is a crow, or it's a raven. And I thought it was just a joke. I didn't know who the director of Jerry Maguire was.
I didn't.
So I looked it up and I was like, this is a level in Bojack that I've not seen before, where they've had real people and they've had anthropomorphized fictional characters.
Yes.
Whereas this is like a combination of the two,
Yes.
where they've taken a real person
Yes.
and they've anthropomorphized him, into a crow, even though he's a raven.
Yes.
Like, the levels in this was just ridiculous.
But I do like how he keeps reminding Princess Caroline that he's not a crow, he's a raven, because she keeps trying to make jokes about his name.
Yeah.
Which again is a bit similar to the gecko, Vanessa Gecko not being a gecko. Up to now, we've been shown the obvious, and now the writers and directors are saying, well, no, we're going to play with that a little bit now, and we're going to swap it around, and we're going to challenge what we have been telling you about this world. But Princess Caroline shows him Suffragette City, which is Kate Blanchett's favourite book. And at the bottom of the book, it says, this is a coming-of-age story about rock music, being a teenager in the 80s, and buying zoos. I mean, I didn't know anything about Cameron Crowe, but I sort of automatically realised that these might have been films that he's made.
Okay.
So Cameron Crowe, he directed We Bought a Zoo.
Okay.
With Matt Damon, I think it is.
Yeah, I watched that one Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah. It's all right.
Okay.
Wasn't bad.
He was also an editor and a writer at Rolling Stones magazine for quite a bit. So that's the reference to about rock music.
Okay.
And he also spent some time undercover in the 80s in a high school to learn more about teenagers coming of age.
Okay.
So it's the coming of age story about rock music, being teenager in the 80s and buying zoos. So it's like all of his work so far is leading straight to this book.
Okay.
So Cameron's very excited about seeing this book.
What about the title?
Yeah, it's not a real book.
No, but
Suffragette City.
Yeah, that must have a reference to something else to do with Cameron Crowe.
Do you reckon? I haven't seen anything because originally I was like, is this a real book? But I couldn't find the book by that author.
No, but if this is all a reference to Cameron Crowe, then surely the title of the book should be a reference as well.
What would even be even nicer for me is if the person who it was written by was some sort of reference to Cameron Crowe. The author.
Yeah.
But I didn't. But that's the main bit anyway. That it's a coming of age story about books. So Cameron's very excited about this book. And he wants to potentially make it. He's excited about the idea of directing a film about this book. And Princess Caroline tells him that this is Kate's favourite book and she would drop everything to star in this movie. So we get back to the office and Gecko is on the phone to Kate, who is dropping out of the Eva Braun project because this new opportunity with Suffragette City developed. Princess Caroline says to Gecko, "Oh, why don't you go home and cry about it to your loving husband and children?" Very sarcastically. And the boss even comes in, Mr. Witherspoon, and he says, "Whoever's messed up the Eva Braun project is fired. Like, you're out of here." So now Gecko's actually been fired as well. Then Lenny Turtletub comes back into the office and he complains that all that work we were doing was for nothing. Quentin Tarantulino got all excited about a rom-com, at which at this point, Princess Caroline actually replies to him saying, "Do you know what would make a good rom-com? That time someone stole the D from the Hollywood sign." The first project wasn't working, and she's had to overcome that with probably a bit of devious work politics. But as a result of that, she's now got 2 projects potentially to work on. And Lenny says, "You know what, that would make a good project actually. But Quentin really likes to revitalise dead careers." And this is where Princess says, "Oh, what about Bojack?" Princess Caroline now calls Bojack to tell him the good news.
Coincidentally, the story is already about Bojack.
Yeah.
Because this is something that Bojack did. But the second that she suggests doing this story, this rom-com about stealing the Hollywood D, in my head it was like she wants to put Bojack in a job.
Yeah.
That came before her concept about the Hollywood D.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, I want to give Bojack a job. So if I pitch a story that in real life was actually Bojack's story, like that's the perfect opportunity to put him." And I don't know why. Why she,
to a head.
Yeah.
Is that the sign, the cardboard cutout of him saying, "Help me, help you"?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah.
But it also ties it into Jerry Maguire and that.
Yeah.
But yeah, "Help me, help you." So it's all sort of just connected in her head that she can get Bojack a job with this story that he's actually been in.
Proving that she's a good agent.
Oh, okay. So she's a good agent.
Because the boss literally said earlier that no one can get him a job.
Well, she said he says the best agent in this building couldn't get her.
Yeah. And the job that she got for him last, he bailed on anyway.
Yes.
So this might be her saying, "Look, I can get Bojack a job."
So she's got Bojack a job, and in the same day defeated her rival through getting her fired and stopping that project from happening, and made a new project with Kate and Suffragette City and Cameron Crowe. So Princess Caroline calls Bojack to tell him the good news, and she's very excited, but Bojack doesn't care. He says, "Nothing matters."
You sometimes bring it back to the voice acting. What's his name? Bojack voice actor?
Will Arnett.
Will Arnett, yeah. And you sometimes you reference how good he is.
Yes.
This was brutal.
Yes.
His delivery of lines in this is so empty that I felt sad just hearing him.
Yeah.
And I was like, because the other big surprise in this is Diane's in the car as well. Because it cuts to it and Diane's in the car and she's not been mentioned in the episode at all. And I'm like, what the hell has happened to Bojack's side of the story in this? Because he's emotionally broken with an incredible, very minimal voice acting performance, and Diane's in the car. So why the hell is Diane in the car? It shocked me. That scene. Something really heavy has happened here.
I think it's also emphasised by this juxtaposition where we've just followed Princess Caroline on a upwards trajectory.
Yeah.
And we've just been seeing her being all motivated and things are happening and she's excited. And then Bojack comes in just at such a low level. Like you say, the acting from Will is brilliant.
I think this is the first time in the series when I'm genuinely interested to know, not necessarily what comes next, but to know what happened.
Yes. So Bojack just says, "I've got to go." Princess Caroline's older sister, Lorna, comes back in to see if she needs anything. And Princess Caroline just says, "No, you can go home, that's fine." And Lorna says, "Are you heading out soon?" And Princess Caroline just replies with, where else would I go? So Princess Caroline's feeling very dejected by this phone call, but also by, I think there's probably two things. One, she probably doesn't know what's gone on because Bojack sounds very upset. So maybe that is her caring about her clients on a level that other agents wouldn't.
Yeah.
But also she's worked so hard to get this job for Bojack and now he doesn't want it. So now maybe it just feels like it's fruitless and empty and wasn't worth doing. Yeah, so just to go to the where else would I go part of what she says, this is the reality of what she was saying earlier about being a hard, heartless career gal. Like, she has gone to work, she has been awesome, but now because she's emptied all of herself into this job, when Lorna says, you know, where are you going somewhere now? She's like, I'm going nowhere to go. Like, this is me. Like, this is, I don't have like different aspects of, you know, the family Princess Caroline and the friendship Caroline and the work Caroline. And she is 100% work.
Yep.
And I think that dawns on her now when she says that. And there's a realization that this is what her life is going to be like if she continues down this path. But there's also an acceptance of that as well. An acceptance of, this is the path that I'm choosing. So I have to accept that there isn't anywhere else to go. Because this is the practical world. Like, practically, she needs to work. She needs money to live. And earlier she talked about not wasting time on foolish flights of fancy. It's like she's a robot, beep, boop, bop. Like, she's telling herself now that she's not allowed to have an imagination. She's not allowed to dream of a better life. She just has to go through this process of a person working very hard and doing the job as well as she can to just keep doing the job.
Do you not think she likes what she enjoys what she does?
I've got my opinion, which I'm not going to say, but I put that back to you.
Yeah, I think she loves it.
Okay.
I get the impression that she lives for it.
Okay.
And that she's made her work her life because she loves doing it.
But that means she's sacrificed the rest of the dreams that she might have.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm trying to say, that she's coming to that realization of, not just, she's probably had this realization before, but it's at this point in the episode it demonstrates her understanding that, but if she's going to give 100% to work, she's not going to have anywhere else to go. She's not going to have relationships with people or have a family.
Maybe she's come to the realization that she's built that life for herself inadvertently.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, this is something that I've been going through recently.
Yeah.
You know, I've spoken about this openly, about how I've spent the last 10 years like trying to build my career probably at the expense of some relationships and friendships. And I didn't realize until recently. It's like a moment of revelation when you're like, oh, okay. I discovered recently that I'm pretty lonely. And I think in that last moment of this episode, when Princess is looking out of the window and all the lights go out and there's only her light left on, I think she has a moment of realization that she's lonely and that she's, for good or for bad, she has created this life for herself. She might enjoy her work, but it's come at a sacrifice, especially when her phone reminder starts pinging that it's her birthday and she's 40. A milestone like that's going to be a huge reminder. It's going to be a huge kind of taking stock moment of where you are and who you've become.
So thank you for that, Matthew, for sharing that, but also thank you for taking us through to the end of the episode. Because I was hoping you were going to do that without interject. I didn't want to interject.
Yeah.
I think the saddest thing was the fact that she said thanks to the phone. I mean, all the way through this episode, she's had this, like, her phone's telling her, like, bits like, oh, this is happening. TV shows do this sometimes where a character isn't with anybody else, but they say something. They have to voice it to the audience. So I don't know whether the thanks phone is just actually her in her head saying thank you, and she has to vocalize it because it'd be weird to watch a character just look at a phone. But actually, I think the phone is probably the closest relationship she has.
Yeah.
It's very deliberate, not just for the show, not just in making the show, but Princess Caroline, it's very deliberate that she has to vocalize thank you phone.
Do you think it's a genuine thanks though? Or is it a kind of like a sarcastic kind of thanks for reminding me?
No, I think it's a genuine thank you.
Okay, that's a genuine question. Yeah. I don't know.
That's where I think it's deliberate that she has to vocalize it as well.
Okay.
Because if it is like, if you just saw something happen, like if I just saw a message from someone I didn't want or something, I wouldn't go, oh, bloody hell, they've messaged me now, if no one was in the room.
No, but I would sarcastically say,
if no one was in the room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's different people. But I
talk to inanimate objects all the time, don't you?
Maybe more people do it than I think.
I don't know. Yeah.
But I feel like what I'm going back to is traditionally in movies where there's only one person in the scene, but they have to explain what's going on. They have to like talk to themselves. It's actually in their head. Yeah. But I don't think that's what this thank you phone is. I think it is a saying thank you to the closest relationship she has. The only person, inverted commas, that has said happy birthday to her on this 40th birthday is her phone. Okay, she's programmed it in probably. But so she has to verbalize the thank you phone because it's an honest thank you. It's the closest she thinks she's going to get to a close relationship now that she's a ruthless career gal. I think this is one of the first endings that really sticks out to me as like just a good show, because now I think we're drifting away from like a comedy. And this is a point where we're seeing a character that we're seeing the reason why a character is flawed, not just the flaw.
Well, there's only two types of stories, right? Comedies and tragedies. So the end of this episode is very much a tragedy rather than a comedy.
Yes. So, favourite visual joke?
I did like the bird trying to instinctively jump out of the window, especially growing up in my parents' house. We had like really like big bay window at the front and at the back. So birds would often think that they could fly straight through. And we had so many birds hit our window.
Yeah.
So like, I think because of my experience with that, with my childhood home, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Birds do that. Oh, I know the turtle.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why I like him as a character. There's one scene that I forgot to mention as well, when he's on the phone to Princess, and he's in his office.
Okay.
And he's walking really slowly across the frame. He's speaking normally.
Yes.
But like the way that his legs move, it's noticeably slower than every other character in the show. And I did like that.
My favourite visual joke is the cheetah on one side on one treadmill, and then the sloth on the other side of the treadmill, and Princess Caroline on the middle. So, final thoughts and rating from Matthew.
I didn't hate it. I think I enjoyed it because it was different, because there was less Bojack and it was more focused on another character. So it was something different. We got a bunch of new characters introduced. Whether I like them or not, it's a bit of variety. Oh no, the greatest joke is Gecko's not a gecko.
Okay, visual joke.
Of course, yeah. Like that's the best joke in the whole series so far. So, definite props for that. I'm gonna give it a 6. Yeah, it felt fresh and it felt different. It was the first episode, I think, that's really kind of like got me intrigued to see what comes next. But the actual themes in it, very tropey, very standard. Oh, this is Hollywood agent life, cutthroat business, blah, blah, blah.
This is another episode that through doing this podcast, I feel like I love a bit more.
You appreciate it more than you did before, yeah?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Is it the Jerry Maguire levels?
It could be something to do with that.
Yeah.
Because I never explored it before.
It's kind of the meta nature of it.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever sat down and actually thought about the position that Princess Caroline is in. I like how this episode emphasizes her self-determinism, that willingness to push through even when things aren't going your way, even when there's obstacles there, your ability to keep going. Yeah, do you know what? It's the Jerry Maguire thing.
Yeah.
Like, once I learned that Jerry Maguire was a different kind of agent that cared for people or cared for his really represented, it completely changed my opinion of Princess Caroline just being a bit of a sucker for Bojack. Princess Caroline is a different type of agent, and up to now we haven't seen that. We've just seen her as one way. So this episode allows us to see a different perspective.
So I don't want to keep bringing it back to the fact that I potentially think she might be not good at her job.
Okay.
But maybe that leads into it as well, that typically the stereotype like agent that you have is cutthroat and doesn't care and like is only out for number one. And whether it's true or not, the stereotype suggests that what makes a good agent. So if she's not that kind of agent and she does care and she is a bit soft on her clients or she does care a bit too much, then maybe that reflects in me thinking that she's not good at her job because she's not as hard-nosed as she could be. Like, my reference for agents in other shows, in other pop culture, is BB Glazer in Frasier. And she's like the absolute archetypal, like, brutal agent representing the stars or whatever. So maybe if you are right, and this goes back to the Jerry Maguire reference, and Princess is more caring for her clients, that actually makes her worse at her job.
I kind of like that she's not just pushing to be a good agent. She's like pushing
to be a good person.
Yeah. I was trying to say something about how she's actually being quite creative in how she approaches her job.
Okay.
Like, she's not just following the process people usually do. She's looking at it from a different way and saying, actually, I think you can be a good agent and care for your clients.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Whether it can be done is probably another question.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what you're saying, is that there's a reason why agents are like that.
Yeah. There's an episode of Frasier where he fires BB and he gets a replacement, a new agent, and he's just like the nicest guy. And Frasier loves him because he's really like polite and caring, and Frasier's like this really nice guy who like wants to like everyone, wants everyone to like him. But when it comes to negotiating, which is what agents are there to do, is useless, right?
He gets
you're basically sending someone into battle for you. That's what agents do. They represent you and they're going to negotiate for you. So you want someone that is going to, he's going to fight tooth and nail for you. You want someone who's a bit hard-edged and brutal.
So I think Princess Caroline in this episode has displayed fighting tooth and nail to get Bojack a job in one day.
Yeah.
And she's willing to be there for him. At the very start of the episode, she was giving him the motivational talk to get him off the lawn. So I think she does display both, and I think it makes her a good agent. But it's more the fact for me that whether she's good or bad, she pushes through the obstacles. That's the thing I really draw on, because I might argue that the only way you get good is through pushing through the obstacles or something like that.
Yeah.
I also just want to mention, I really like how this episode talks about the sacrifices that we have to make if we want to pursue something. Like how we've talked about a few times, you choose what you sacrifice, not what you want.
Mm-hmm. You have to choose your regrets.
I think this episode is actually showing us that maybe through Gecko having everything and it not working out, but I don't quite like that. I prefer the visual of Princess Caroline working very hard and putting everything into something and not having everything.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they address the sacrifice, basically, that people have to make, as we do make sacrifices. But we don't think we are going to have to make sacrifices.
Okay. What was your score?
An 8.
I thought you were going to say 8.
Okay. Yeah. I was very close to putting 9.
Wow.
Or even 8.5. But there's a few bits where I just feel like it's not quite there. Maybe the Todd bit pulls the episode down a bit. IMDb is a 7.9. So this is now the highest rated episode we've seen so far.
Previously, it was
The last one that we watched.
really.
Yes,
I thought
7.8.
Navy SEAL was the highest. Okay, well, that's been the other best episode so far. These I think the Navy SEAL episode and this one are certainly the standout episodes from the season so far.
In the next episode, we will be discussing Series 1, Episode 8, The Telescope. Thank you for listening.